Hey there, Saber fans, Shamim here. Today we're doing a video comparison between two different versions of the Luke Skywalker lightsaber as seen in The Last Jedi, Episode 8. The top one up here is entitled The Creepy Uncle and is made by RPF seller Lukyanov. Forgive me if I pronounced that incorrectly. That's his username on the RPF. And then the bottom one here is Roman Props. The name of the hilt is the Balance V4. This is the second generation of Roman Props Balance. You may remember that I previously had done an unboxing video of the Gen 1 Balance V4 from Roman Props. And some of the complaints that I had about that hilt have been addressed in the second version. And then this is my first experience with Lukyanov on the RPF. I hadn't purchased any of his hilts before. I hadn't really even heard of him before, but I saw that he was doing a version of the Last Jedi hilt, and I decided to purchase one, give it a try, and I also purchased the Roman Props Gen 2, so that I could do a full comparison between the two. Immediately, the first difference that I notice is that the Creepy Uncle has brass at the neck and the control box, as opposed to the copper, which the Roman Props version has. I guess it comes down to personal preference, and whether you believe that brass coloring is more accurate to The Last Jedi compared to copper. I personally prefer the copper, just because the hilt is sort of canonically supposed to be the same as the one seen in Return of the Jedi, and the Return of the Jedi prop. All the ones that we've seen, most of them have used copper. And so that's the coloring that I'm familiar with this style of hilt, even though there are, of course, some other changes to the hilt for The Last Jedi. The copper is sort of what I'm canonically more familiar with, and that's what I've grown up with, been accustomed to. And so just aesthetically, personally, I like the copper better. That is not to say that the brass doesn't look beautiful on the hilt and that it isn't well machined, because it definitely is. Let's compare the control boxes. You can see that this copper edge piece here on the control box is much taller. The height is much taller than it is up here on the brass version of the Creepy Uncle. The spacing between the arrows is much closer together on the Creepy Uncle. They're a bit more, further apart on the Roman Props version. That could just be the shadows. So let's take a look. Nope, it does appear that the Roman Props one are a little bit further apart. The screws are smaller. These small slotted screws are smaller diameter, smaller screw face than the ones on the Creepy Uncle. I have to be honest, I have not followed very closely at all the in-depth discussions on Replica Props Forum or any other groups as they analyze the differences between Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker lightsaber and The Last Jedi Luke Skywalker lightsaber. So from scene to scene, I haven't really followed to see like what is more accurate. So I'm not going to be talking about what's more accurate to the film. This is just a comparison with the differences between these two different hilts, and then you as the customer can decide which one you personally like better. Let's see. The neck is a little bit wider on the Roman Props compared to the Creepy Uncle. Let's see if we can bring this one down to this level and we can compare them a bit more closely. The neck is also a little bit longer on the Creepy Uncle compared to the Roman Props below. So there you can see not just the neck, but also the emitter. This largest portion of the emitter is taller than it is on the Roman Props, and the face of the Roman. This is going to be difficult to see. Let's see here. The face of the Roman Props is also just a millimeter or two smaller. So the actual width of this is the Roman Props one here. Let's see if we can do a nice comparison. We line those up. It's hard to really get it perfect. Let's see here. You can also see that this nipple is a little bit shorter and smaller compared to the, there we go, we'll line up the tops of the nipples. And you can see that the nipple on the creepy uncle is a little bit wider, and it's also, the flange is a little bit wider as well. Both of these accept a 1-inch thin-walled blade, and both of them have the option for both sound venting on the pommel as well as a solid pommel for display purposes. Switch assembly-wise, the card for the creepy uncle slides out like so, and there's no solution for circuit card activation. Instead, what you have are rocking black greeblies here. So you would put tactile switches with the plungers facing downwards if you're looking at it this way, and then you would click, click, and then there's also a spring in the middle allowing you to click both of them at the same time for activating mute mode or for activating auxiliary effects like color changing or whatnot. They swivel a lot right now when the switches are not installed. I imagine that once you actually put switches back there that fill up the space, then you're only going to get like a little bit of a click, a little bit of a swivel, and only when you press down on them. Compared with the Roman props, the black greeblies are static. Those are not meant for activation. Instead, what you have are 2 holes here for switch plungers to rise through. And there's enough space for the circuit card to, there you go, to slide in, and then still have enough space for you to be able to press down and activate the switch plungers. Paul Tatum had previously made a PCB board for illuminating the arrows and also getting your switches up in there, which fits perfectly in the control box. So I'll be picking up one of those for my install. I believe he's also making some kind of PCB for the creepy uncle. So hopefully whenever that's released, then I can pick one of those up as well. Let's look at the D-ring. To my eye, the D-ring on the creepy uncle is larger than the D-ring on the Roman props. And again, I can't say which one is more accurate. I'm just pointing out this is what I notice. Speaking of the pommel, let's look at the angle. You can see that this angle here is much more slanted, about 45 degrees compared with the angle going this way. So there, the lines of the pommel cubes are at 2 different angles, very noticeable 2 different angles on the Roman props. They seem to be a bit more uniform on the creepy uncle. If they are different angles, this is very, very, very slightly at a more of a 45-degree angle compared to this one. Which maybe is at like a 50-degree angle, but it's much less pronounced than it is on the Roman props balance. The face of the cubes is larger. The rectangle is larger here than here, that you can see. So the creepy uncle cubes faces are a little bit larger. Let's see what else we can compare. This little divot in here, this little groove, is a little bit deeper than it is here on the Roman props. The size of the, let's see if we can compare nicely the size of these grenade sections. They look to be about the same, and the length of the grenade section also seems to be about the same. The black neck here, like the brass neck, is a little bit thinner on the creepy uncle than it is on the Roman props. Let me take a look and see what else I can look at. That's about it. One of my biggest concerns, or one of my biggest complaints with the Gen 1 Roman props was the subpar machining. And that has been cleaned up here on the second generation. There's no anodized chipping here along the grenade section, which had happened on my Gen 1. So overall, the finish is much, much nicer on the Gen 1. Or on the Gen 2. You'll also notice that this section with the arrows is no longer a separate plate, that it is one solid side section. This apparently is more accurate to The Last Jedi over Return of the Jedi. And the same style you see here on the Creepy Uncle is one solid plate. Let's see, the black doesn't go all the way to the edge. And similarly, it doesn't go all the way to the edge, so that's pretty consistent. In terms of the control box, you'll see that there is a little bit of brass that goes into the control box, whereas the top of the aluminum control box is flat. There is no lowered section there for the copper plate. Again, can't say which one is more accurate to the film. That's just what I notice. One cool thing about the Creepy Uncle, it comes with a double-sided circuit card, one with thicker brass traces. There we go. There's the thicker brass and black traces, so there's fewer of them, and then one with thinner ones. This may be due to different reference shots, and so the Lukyanov decided to provide both options. I'm not sure. Let's see what the Roman Props one has. It's just black on the bottom. And you would remove this bit of tape and slide it over onto your switches once you get those installed. Yeah. Yay, D-ring. Both of them have about the same internal diameter. It's a little bit larger than the 1.1 Saber Forge style chassis that I normally use on my Sabers. I don't know if chassis exist that are specific to the internals of these guys. I do know that the screws holding the control box on the Creepy Uncle do go in pretty far into the main body, so those will need to be shaved down so that they're flush with the inner diameter, and that way a chassis can slide in and out. I don't think that was necessary to do on the Gen 1 Romans. I haven't disassembled the box to see if the Gen 2 has longer screws or not, but either way, that's a very simple thing to do before you install. Let's take a quick look at... Let's see. So, Roman Props has a smaller retention screw. Roman definitely likes his very, very, very small retention screws. So that's, I don't even know what size that is, but it's very small. And there it comes with your heatsink module to accept a 1-inch thin-walled blade. And one of the nice details on the Gen 2 is that the balance pipe detailing here stays on the emitter and is not part of the blade plug as it was on the Gen 1. A slightly larger retention screw for the Creepy Uncle, but also leaves you with a heatsink included and a 1-inch thin-walled blade. Comparing the two, the Creepy Uncle comes with the little hole drilled in, not all the way in, and it's not threaded. This little hole drilled in on the nipple, whereas the oops, there it goes. Whereas the Roman Props does not. And you can also tell that the nipple is taller and wider for the Creepy Uncle version compared to the Roman Props, which is shorter and slimmer. I will be drilling a little hole into the very center of both of these to allow just a wee bit of shine through, because I love blade plugs with shine through. If the blade plug doesn't shine through in some capacity, I'm not about it. That's just my personal preference. Alright. So, overall final thoughts. This is sort of a secondary, not only is it a comparison of the two of them, but it's also sort of a review of the Gen 2 Roman Props since I reviewed the Gen 1 earlier. And the Gen 2, in my opinion, is much nicer. The added accuracy of the second plate being removed, the better machining finish on this, and then the inclusion of the balance pipe at the emitter, plus also having these holes for your switches pre-drilled just makes it an easier install all around. So if you missed out on the Gen 1, the Gen 2 is far superior to the Gen 1 in my opinion. And now compared to the Creepy Uncle, one of the biggest determining factors in any purchase is price. And the Roman Props is a full $100 more expensive than the Creepy Uncle. And that, for a lot of people, is just the determining factor, and they're going to go with the Creepy Uncle. And if you did go with the Creepy Uncle, you'd be getting a very fine hilt with no obvious machining flaws. Feels very sturdy. It feels great in the hand. And you get it for a far more affordable price, for very similar level of quality, at least in my estimation. One of the things to note, speaking about the arrows, you can see that they are slightly different colors and shades. These ones are a little bit brighter and more vibrant. These ones are a little bit more muted. Of course, when you get a green and a red LED shining behind them, that color will become a little bit less different and distinct, as the LEDs really just shine through pretty brightly. But one of the things that I dislike about the Creepy Uncle is how the red and green LEDs had to be sanded down in order to fit inside the triangular slots made in the control box. Using my Dremel, I sort of sanded them down, and I'm pretty sure I cut into the actual LED leads themselves and probably damaged those LEDs, so I'm going to have to try and find replacements for those. But unlike those, the little inserts for the Roman Props just slide right in without any modification necessary. The downside to that is that these are just inserts. They're clear acrylic inserts that are colored. These are not functioning LEDs, whereas these are functioning LEDs with the long positive and negative leads for each one. So you get the LEDs right off the bat, but you have to sand them down and modify them. You risk possibly ruining them if your hand slips. Whereas these are colored inserts. You don't have to sand anything down, but they're not LEDs. So you would need to purchase either colored or white LEDs to mount behind these red and green inserts if you wanted to make them activate and blink. Why wouldn't you want blinkies? So yeah, that's that. And then for some people, the Greebly activation is more important than the circuit card activation. So that's another considering factor. A big factor for me is the copper versus the brass. And as I've already stated, the copper is what I personally lean towards. But both of them are really, really nice. I don't see a clear winner outside of the $100 price difference. And that, for a lot of people, is the determining factor. One could easily copper plate or copper powder coat the brass sections if you wanted the clear, or if you wanted the copper color, compared to just having actual copper, which will tarnish and age naturally. But even if you copper plate them, it will tarnish and age naturally. So I have two Creepy Uncles. I may actually do that. I may copper plate one of the Creepy Uncles, copper plate those brass sections to see what it looks like, do a little comparison. Yeah, so I can't, again, speak to which one is more screen accurate. I'll leave that to more eagle-eyed fans to be able to determine what sections of each are more accurate. I think, to the best of my knowledge, the inaccurate, or the uneven angle is more accurate, but that may have been for Return of the Jedi. I don't even remember. Again, I'm not an accuracy expert when it comes to this particular hilt. Graflexes, I'm a lot more knowledgeable, but not so much on this hilt. I'm just doing a comparison, showing off what I like and what I don't so much like on each hilt. Whichever one you end up going for, I think you will be very happy. One thing to note is that the Roman Props Balance V4 is currently available and is shipping. I got this within a few days. The Creepy Uncle by Lukyanov is sold out this first run, and I believe he'll be doing a second run sometime in the near future. So if you're interested in that one, you're currently out of luck, but you may be able to snag one either secondhand or pick one up in his second run, which should be opening hopefully sometime soon. I should also note that the Creepy Uncle comes in two different finishes. It comes in a brushed aluminum finish, and it comes in more of a sandblasted and anodized satin style finish, which apparently is more accurate to one version of the prop that was seen on like an exhibition tour. Like there's a picture of a guy in white gloves holding it, and it's very much a more matte and not as much of a brushed polish finish. Compared to the one that you see in the movie, which obviously is a brushed finish. So depending on which prop you're trying to replicate, Creepy Uncle by Lukyanov offers 2 different versions of that you can choose between. And I don't believe there's a price difference between the two. I could be mistaken, but I got the brushed, polished version because I love brushed and polished aluminum. I hate anodized, sandblasted finish. I really, really do. But again, that's a personal preference. And it also matches what Roman Props has, so it was easier to compare and contrast the two differences if you had a similar finish across both hilts. But again, both of them are really, 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 really nice. There's nothing on either hilt that I'm like, wow, that really sucks. Just small little preferences. Some people may prefer the proportions of this box. It's a little bit shorter. Some people like a little bit of a taller box. Some people want the clamp activation compared to, or the circuit card activation compared to Black Greebly activation. Differences in, how these are sized and spaced. Copper versus brass. And then the shape of the pommels. The thinness or the thickness of the neck. Again, whichever one you go with, I think you're going to be very happy, and we're lucky that we have 2 very excellent versions of the Luke Skywalker hilt as seen in The Last Jedi. Thank you all so much for watching, and may the Force be with you.